There he is, Paul Hudrick, 97.3 ESPN.com, and, of course, at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. And we told you to go to Twitter, as you can see that Paul is going to be a papa. How about that? Congratulations there, Paul.
Thank you. Very, very much appreciated. We are very excited.
I like the mini Iversons. That's a nice touch. I caught that, dude.
I had to bargain for that a little bit. I think that qualifies as my first dad joke to put that question thing in there. But yeah, but I'm very, very grateful for my girlfriend for allowing me for her to kind of humor me with that. It's very kind of her.
Perfect. Well, congratulations, man, and we certainly wish you luck with that. All right, Sixers Wizards tonight. Game 2. Now, I'm sitting here ready for the show today, and I got people barking. You know, I'm hearing Kendrick Perkins over my ear today saying he thinks the Wizards win this game tonight. I'm thinking, what did you see in Game 1 that might make you think that there's a crack in the armor that the Wizards are going to come in and win this game? Did I miss something?
No, you didn't miss anything. If anything, I sort of – I mean, I could get killed for this later for saying this, but if anything, I suspect the opposite. What you saw in some of the other games in these game twos, I see the Sixers at home now acclimated to the playoffs again. I said it to you the other day, Mike, and I still feel this way. Game 1 was the Wizards' best shot. That was the best shot the Wizards were going to get. The Sixers had a week off. They were sitting home, didn't play a competitive basketball game. The Wizards played 2 of them, so they were already in playoff mode. So that was, to me, that was the Wizards' best shot to win a game. And, you know, not that I still don't think, you know, even if they would have won the game, I still don't think they win the series, but that would have been their best shot. So, no, there is nothing. And like Joel Embiid got in foul trouble and only played 30 minutes. Dwight Howard had to play 18 minutes and the Sixers won.
Right.
And really in the second half, really controlled the game for the most part down the stretch. So, no, if anything, I think that there's more evidence from watching Game 1 that Game 2 will not be as close, if anything.
This might just be one of those, like, random observations, but you saw what Milwaukee did to the Heat the other night. You saw what Brooklyn did. Do the Sixers feel like they have to, like, kind of, hey, here, hold my beer?
I don't know if they necessarily feel that pressure. I think for them, the one thing that's done them well and that Doc Rivers has kind of had them on the course of all year of is – kind of looking at, like, just look at what's in front of you. Like, you know what I mean? You have a basketball game tonight. You have to win. And I think they've had that. That's a mentality that maybe they haven't had in the past under Brett Brown, but they have it under Doc Rivers. And I give him a lot of credit. I give a guy like Danny Green a lot of credit and Dwight Howard even, just for giving these guys this focus. Even George Hill talked about it. I mean, you know, he was talking about Tyrese Maxey and kind of his advice to Maxey. And he said, the playoffs, it's every possession. You need to have focus on every single possession. Every single possession is valuable. And I think they have that mentality. So when we're looking at those other game twos, I think that's okay for us to kind of look at it like that. But I don't think they are. I really don't. I think they're looking at it as, let's just take care of business. Let's win this game tonight and you know, do what we're supposed to do and win at home.
Right. All right. So, you know, and again, I agree. Like, it's not like, hey, you got to win 130 to 105 because everybody else is. I think everybody's going to kind of slight them anyway, just because of the regular season and a lot of in the way the Bucks have been the last couple of years. But the last couple of days, they've had 2 days off to get ready for this game. What do we learn maybe about the way they're going to use Tyrese Maxey the rest of this series?
Certainly sounds like they're going to use him, which I think in and of itself is pretty newsworthy. Coming in, I felt like at some point he was going to find his way into minutes. I wasn't sure the circumstances. I knew it would be something where they would need that speed and that decisiveness and that downhill kind of guard that can get to the rim. I wasn't expecting it in Game 1 of the first series, but here we are. And if you have been paying attention to this team for the last month or so, you have seen what this young man has done. He has been outstanding. And not like, hey, outstanding for a rookie, outstanding for a 20-year-old. No, he has just been flat out outstanding. And every
why wouldn't they use him more down the stretch then in a more defined role?
I think because Doc was still, he was still kind of earning Doc's trust again, because he hit the wall. Like, there's no question with that. Maxey did hit a wall at one point, and for me, I thought it was going to be, all right, that's great. It's a good story. The kid had a really nice first part of the season. He looks like he's going to be a part of their future. We'll see him again next year. But to his credit, when the opportunities arose, Doc Rivers played him and he took advantage of those opportunities. And if you're looking at it, I think if you're trying to ask me like what Doc Rivers, like what he was looking at, he just, every time Maxey got into games, it made it harder for Doc Rivers not to play him the next night. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I think it's just, he puts Maxey in just because, Seth Curry gets hit in the gut and he's got to come in. The first thing the kid does is get to the basket and get N1. And then if you're Doc Rivers, it's like, well, how could I not? Like, I have to, like, if this is the way that he is going to play, I have to find a way to get him in. And I thought, what Doc Rivers said, interesting yesterday, he mentioned that what he thinks could be, a vulnerable spot or something that could exploit is getting downhill and getting to the rim. You saw Tobias Harris was very effective doing that in game one. So a guy like Maxey, who that is his game. His game is being decisive, getting downhill and getting to the rim. He could have a big impact on the series. And I just think, you have to, I think the three, like we've kind of discussed all along, like those three guys are solid. Dwight Howard, Matisse Thybulle, George Hill. Those are the three guys that are going to play every single night. I think that, the 9th and 10th, whatever spots, those are up for grabs still. Shake Milton has a very tenuous grab, it feels like, on that 9th spot, but Tyrese Maxey's coming and he's earned every bit of it. Like I said, if you've watched him over the past month, none of this should surprise you.
You think Washington goes more? I mean, they played zone in game one. You saw a little zone. Do you think they do more of that? I mean, obviously they can't man Embiid, and they have trouble with Tobias Harris. So do you play more zone?
They could. It kind of goes back to what we talked about on Monday too, where, they had issues double teaming Joel Embiid. They just really, frankly, couldn't do it. They just don't have the necessary personnel to kind of give Joel Embiid problems in that regard. And I think if they go to a zone, they're going to be facing the same kind of issues. And I think that it's not like zone defense too. It's the kind of thing where the teams that do it well, like the teams that have even had success doing it against the Sixers, there are teams that run zone, like Miami. Spoelstra likes the zone. Spoelstra will run a zone, not just against the Sixers. He has a zone implemented. Most teams just don't dedicate a ton of time to that. I'm sure the Wizards have done more once they learned that the Sixers were their opponent. But at the same time, it's really hard to just kind of scrape that together because there's just, in order to be an effective zone defensive team in the NBA, you have to have the players, first of all. You have to have the continuity, second of all. And I'm not sure the Wizards have enough of either of those things for it to be effective.
Paul Hudrick, 97.3 ESPN.com. Sixers Wizards tonight at 7 here on 97.3 ESPN. Obviously, the Ben Simmons stuff, you wrote about it. Is it fair? Is it not fair? We talked about it a little bit the other day. But give me something underrated that he does that maybe the common fan or the average fan just watching the game doesn't even realize.
I think it's just the way he sees the game on both ends of the floor. I think
give them something that they could try to appreciate. If you're saying he's not going to score, but watch for this, and you might appreciate him more.
Yeah, I think it's just the little nuances to his game. Like Brett Brown had a term called like quarterback in the gym. He more applied it to Joel Embiid, but I think that's what Ben Simmons does. I think he looks for opportunities and he looks for mismatches. And like when you see Tobias Harris go for 37 points, credit to Tobias Harris. He deserves credit for it. But look at how many of those plays where Ben Simmons got him the ball in the right spot, or Ben Simmons and him were on the same page, and he hits him on that backdoor cut on that bounce pass, or where Ben Simmons drives to the paint, and maybe he can force up like a little 5-foot hook shot, but instead of doing that, he sees Seth Curry or Danny Green wide open and hits them for 3 because 3 is worth more than 2. So I think it's those little kind of nuances and those little things that, and then I would say another thing too, Mike, on defense, we look at steal and block numbers, but look at the turnovers he forced that don't show up on a stat sheet. There were 2 plays where Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal passed it to nobody because Ben Simmons just shut them down. One looked like Westbrook tried to pass it to the official and threw it out of bounds. The other one, Bradley Beal threw it at Seth Curry's back, and it led to a fast break on the other end. So I just think the way he sees the game, I think, is next level. Like there's there are only a few guys that can see the game the way he does. And then you got to look for the stuff that doesn't show up on the box score, and it's little things like that,
which is hard for the average fan to do when they want to see shots, score, shot, right. Shoot.
But that's what it's easy. That's an easy way to kind of and that's not to insult people, but it is. It's the easy way to look at things. Oh, he only scored 6 points. But if you watch, and we talk, the one stat, he generated 42 points off of his assist. 42 points.
Yeah.
and again, it's not just like him, passing to a guy and he makes a couple dribbles and makes a tough shot. No, he's passing the guys finding wide open threes. He's hitting George Hill on a fast break on a slant pattern with an absolute laser.
That was unbelievable.
He's threading bounce passes to Tobias Harris on a backdoor cut. He is creating these opportunities. They are not just, it's things that literally just would not occur if he were not on the floor. So I think if you just watch him and just see the little things he does and the way, again, it's the box score is not always going to look good, which, by the way, it did look good with 15 assists and 15 rebounds.
Right.
But it's those little things that he does to generate offense for the team, and to get stops and generate turnovers on the other end.
Right. I mean, he accounts for 48 points the other night. He only scored 6 and still accounted for almost 50 points in the game. And one, to kind of give you another layer of explanation of what I try to explain to people is people get mad. And you can't, there's sometimes when he dribbles and then he gives up the dribble and he turns his back and you're like, what are you doing? But there's other times, though, if you just it almost like he does it purposefully because he's so patient and he does it I'm kind of stuck here. And I equate it to an option quarterback. He's just waiting for that defender to kind of come down on him. And the second that guy takes that step, it's when he goes, whoop, right into Danny Green wide open in the corner. So it's even when he kind of makes it what are you doing? You've got your back turned and you're looking around. Most guys dribble, they realize they got caught, and they kick it right out, but not to an area where a guy can do anything. They just kind of restart the offense. He gets caught down there almost purposely waiting for that defender to come after him so that he can zip one out. I'm like, how do people not appreciate what this guy's doing? It's mind-boggling to me. But, hey.
When he does that, it shifts the entire defense. When you're forcing a guy to help off of their man, that creates an open player.
Yeah.
So that's the basics of it is when he does that, when he gets to the rim and another player has to come up, especially if he's got a smaller guy guarding him and a bigger guy has to come, that's opening up an opportunity for someone else. And kind of to further your point, Mike, and what I wrote about is the idea of this formula that they've had all season. Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, they are the scorers. Danny Green, Seth Curry, they are the shooters. It is Ben Simmons' job to find scoring opportunities for Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris and shooting opportunities for Danny Green and Seth Curry. And that is exactly what he's done. Will that be good enough as they move forward? I don't know. No one knows as of this moment, but it's worked so far to get him the number 1 seed and 1 playoff win.
Absolutely. Right. Again, if you want him to score 20 or 25, you're going to be disappointed. If you want him to account for 48, and if he makes his damn free throws, he's accounting for over 50. But you're right. This team is a 3-pronged offense, Paul. It's Embiid getting his way. It's the 3-point guys that they have, and it's the transition that Ben creates. And, of course, Tobias Harris is part of that Embiid. It's kind of Embiid and Harris, getting their spots, finding their spots where they want to pull up or when Embiid wants to muscle you. But the transition and then Ben setting up these role players to hit 3. The problem a lot of people have is role players don't win championships, and this team's depending on role players.
Yeah, well, listen, I think one thing you talked about is the transition. And Doc Rivers talks a lot about pace and playing with pace. And I think some people equate that to just playing in transition, but that's not just the case. Pace is also just moving the ball quickly and running the offense quickly. And it's Ben Simmons getting the ball at the floor quickly. And then that it's not necessarily, you're not getting a fast break point off that, But when he does that, it can create a mismatch because then guys can't find their assignment quickly, and it kind of wreaks havoc on another team.
Well,
Doc
and their brought
defense.
that up. He said, "Oh, he's a treasure, and he does this." He says, but he creates things that the other team just doesn't want to have to be a part of because he creates all them. They have to switch so much because of him, and he creates all these problems for not himself but somebody else because. And it's just like I saw this, I'm watching this play unfold, and they have Ben is down on the block, and Joel's at the foul line, and Joel goes to the right block. Well, what happens? Ben's guy leaves him to double, and then the guy who's in the corner defending Curry has to come down on Simmons because he's 6'10". You can't just let him sit in the paint by himself. But because of his size, and then what happens? Embiid is so good at finding Curry. And Curry's got a shot that, he's wide open. The amount of wide open looks this team gets is they got to make them, though. They got to hit them. But
that's what happened in the first half is that they didn't make them. And then the other thing I would add to Ben Simmons, too, which it's not sexy, but offensive rebounds. Offensive rebounds are huge in the playoffs. And if you have a guy who can do that at an elite level and create second opportunities, that's huge. And like the guy I've been kind of comparing, and I get it. He was the number 1 overall pick, blah, blah, blah. We all need to move on from the fact that he was the number 1 pick. Look at him compared to a guy. Draymond Green might make the Hall of Fame. That's how good Draymond Green is.
But yeah,
I think Ben Simmons has a chance to be a better version of Draymond Green.
But that's the thing. They don't win those titles without Draymond Green. You need Draymond Green to win the title.
That's what I keep trying to tell. I get it. He's the number 1 pick, but you got to get it out of your head. If he was the number 15 pick, you would be ecstatic that he put up 15 assists and 15 rebounds. But because he was number 1, it's this big thing. Think about number 1 picks. Number 1 picks don't always work out. The fact that you have one that might be a defensive player of the year and might be a Draymond Green kind of player, that is nothing.
Those guys are hard to find. I said the other day, Paul, the Sixers have a unicorn, and the Sixer fans want him to look like a horse. Take that thing off your forehead. I don't get it, but hey, we will find out soon. Because if there's a night when those guys aren't shooting well, that's when he needs to get his game more aggressive to the basket, and he's got to make his free throws. That we know. All right, Sports Bash Live, Inside the Sixers with Paul Hudrick. They're up tonight at 7 o'clock. Tom McGinnis will have the call here on 97.3 ESPN. Follow at Paul Hudrick for updates on tonight's game. What time's Doc talking today?
5:15, and also Pat Croce talking today as well. He's going to be the bell ringer tonight.
Pat Croce was on the air with us Saturday and spilled the beans that he was going to be ringing the bell, and our Saturday guy's all mad because he said that on my show that he was going to ring the bell. Pretty funny. All right, Paul, we'll talk to you Friday.
Sounds good, Mike. Take care, man.
Paul Hudrick, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Great stuff from Paul. And by the way, congratulations to Paul. He's going to be a dad. All right? He's going to be a father, and he's going to be covering the Sixers. And you can read more of his stuff at 973ESPN.com.